What's up everyone, Darcblade returning with my Mass Effect 3 multiplayer class guide. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Asari Vanguard, a great class that I overlooked at the start. I overlooked this because I love the Asari adept and I didn't think the Vanguard was as good a class, especially in the harder difficulties. If you don't go so overzealous with your biotic charge, use a nice combination of biotics combined with weaponry, then the Asari Vanguard is a class good enough to tackle any difficulty. Now as always I spec my classes for gold and silver mode. My Asari Vanguard I spec as follows. I always put points into barrier no matter what race of Vanguard I am. With the Asari I put weapon damage increase as the Asari Vanguard normally follows up the biotic charge with weapon fire. I also do the AoE hit from the biotic charge. Stasis, you gotta go with the stasis bubble. Asari should always go for the bubble, I find. It's a nice form of crowd control and allows for the easy setup of biotic explosions. I take lift grenades a little bit. I don't max them out. Some people leave them out completely, but I like to have a middle ground. Have them there to activate biotic explosions. Asari Justicar and fitness is down to personal preference, although if you went for Asari Justicar, maybe go for points in power over weaponry. I also like to go for full health and full shields in the fitness tree. With the Asari Vanguard, I feel weaponry is down to personal preference. There is no right and wrong weapon with the Asari Vanguard. Of course, don't overburden yourself too much, as it is nice to have a little bit of a quick cooldown timer so you can use stasis or biotic charge when it's needed. But anyway, let's get into the meat of the episode. Let's talk about the Asari Vanguard's abilities and powers. Firstly, it has Biotic Charge, the signature move of all Vanguards in the Mass Effect 3 universe. Basically, the Vanguard envelops themselves in biotic energy, making them immune for a brief time as they're travelling towards their target in high velocity. A little bit of caution and situational awareness is beneficial with Biotic Charge, because charging, regardless of who you're charging into or where you're charging, can normally spell death for any Vanguard. As long as you're not putting yourself in too much danger, Biotic Charge can be used to activate biotic explosions, which is a nice touch to the ability. If you spec into the barrier section of the Biotic Charge spec tree, then you can replenish your barrier if it's depleted. This is probably the reason I love Biotic Charge, and probably the reason why I always max out Biotic Charge. Having the ability to replenish your shields at the touch of a button is so useful in emergency situations. You just have to be careful that you don't get yourself into worse situations by charging someone who's on the other side of the battlefield. But most of the time I end up using the Biotic Charge when people are too close to me, I've lost my barrier, and I need to get it back quickly. I also like to use Biotic Charge as a way to stagger enemies. The second power the Asari Vanguard has is Stasis, or as I call it, the Stasis Bubble. Because to be honest, if you are putting any points into Stasis, which you probably should, then you need to spec it so it becomes a bubble. So it's like a Stasis Bubble. With your Stasis now as a bubble, it can trap multiple opponents in it. Stasis is an awesome way of crowd controlling enemies. Non-armoured enemies anyway, as stasis has no effect against targets who have armour, but it works well on anyone who has shields or barriers. Stasis can also be used to set up biotic explosions that you or your teammates can activate. You personally can activate them with Biotic Charge or your lift grenades. A great tactic I find with stasis and Biotic Charge is you can stasis people who get too close to you, and because they are too close to you, you can use Biotic Charge without the danger of getting yourself into more trouble. One of the personal reasons why I love stasis is that it is an awesome power to use on phantoms. Phantoms have barriers and normal health. They don't have any armor, so stasis can take these annoying, troublesome enemies out of action easily. Just be sure to finish them off whilst they're in stasis or as they come out of stasis. People in stasis will eventually fall out of it due to the amount of time they've been in it or the amount of damage they've taken. You can augment these factors depending on how you spend your points in the stasis tree. Stasis is one of them abilities that has diminishing returns, so if you keep using stasis on a single opponent, they'll become eventually immune to it. I find that stasis is useful for two things. One, The offensive ability, use stasis to trap the people you want to attack and kill, and the defensive abilities, which is to trap the people you want to delay or keep away from your group. The third power the Asari Vanguard has is lift grenades. These are some nice damage dealing grenades. Unfortunately, like with all grenades, they do come in limited supply, so keep an ammo box within running range. These grenades will also affect targets with the effect of pull. They will lift them up into the air, dangling them about and making them incapacitated for a short time, if it doesn't kill them. Lift grenades can also be used to set up biotic explosions, similar to the biotic explosions you would get from the pull ability you find on other classes. Unfortunately, the Asari Vanguard doesn't really have any major abilities to set off these biotic explosions due to the fact that they're lifted so high off the ground. You might be able to get away with it with biotic charge, but it's not a safe bet. It's probably best to let teammates set off the biotic explosions. I personally use the lift grenades mainly to activate my biotic explosions from stasis on people who have been stasised quite a distance away. Rather than having to use biotic charge to set off that biotic explosion, I'd rather throw a lift grenade than get myself out of my defensive position and into trouble. The points in Asari Justicar should mainly be spent in powers, I feel, as the powers normally also come with weight reduction and weaponry, which is always a nice ability to have. As for fitness, I put most points as I could into health and shields. This is because I feel that the Vanguard is a high risk class. You do put yourself in a lot of danger thanks to biotic charge. And I personally wanted an Asari who was a little bit tougher than my Asari adept, because my Asari adept has minimum points in fitness. I personally like to go with a submachine gun or pistol, or in some cases both. But then again, something like a sniper rifle would work just as well. You could potentially use it to pick off headshots from people you use stasis on. The Asari as a race are not too different from the humans in terms of health and shields. They're not exactly the strongest, they're a little bit squishy. So you have to be a little bit cautious and not to charge and gun-ho with the Asari. They have a nice move called Biotic Dash, which is like a teleport dodge move. This is probably the best dodge move in the game, I would say. It is the quickest dodge and gets you out of the way really quickly. Unfortunately, it sacrifices a tiny bit of barrier for doing it. Their normal melee isn't the strongest, but they have a really good AoE strong melee called a heavy biotic blast. This is a nice move and looks quite flashy. Okay, so let's go back and recap the abilities and powers of the Asari Vanguard. Firstly, it has Biotic Charge, a great move that can stagger enemies, replenish your shields if spec'd right, and can activate biotic explosions. Secondly, it has Stasis, which if spec'd right, becomes a stasis bubble. This can trap multiple enemies in them, setting up biotic explosions as well. Thirdly, we have lift grenades. These are a nice source of damage. Unfortunately, they come in limited supply. They can be used to lift enemies up into the air. They can also be used to activate biotic explosions. With the Asari Vanguard, I find that it's a class that has to use both powers and weaponry in order to be good. Some classes can get away with just using powers, and some can get away with just using weaponry. But for the Asari Vanguard, for them to be the best they can possibly be, I feel that you have to use both of them equally. Use your abilities to trap enemies and to get yourself out of sticky situations, whilst using your weaponry to rely on the actual killing of opponents. You can of course use your powers to kill the enemies as well, but I find these are more situational. The best thing you can do is to try to find a good combination, a unity between using your various powers and your weaponry to achieve the best possible result you can. Do this and you'll be a great Asari Vanguard. Anyway, I've been Darcblade, bringing you my guide to the Asari Vanguard, a great hybrid class that combines biotics and weaponry. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.